Ford 289 Hi-Po V8. Fast revving, small displacement, and reasonable fuel economy typically aren't features of American V8s, unless it's a Ford 289 V8. The Hi-Po version of the 289 makes a respectable 271 horsepower and around 315 pound-feet of torque. The 289 Hi-Po was featured in legendary Ford muscle cars like the first-generation Mustang, AC Cobra, and the Shelby GT 350h. In fact, the Hi-Po 289 was the first ever high-performance engine fitted to a Mustang, and it gave the pony car the fierce character we've come to associate it with the 289 Hi-Po K-Code engine, which began life in 1963 in the Ford Fairlane, operated with a compression ratio of 10.51, and had a mechanical camshaft with flat tappets, a 2-point distributor, a large 595 CFM manual choke carburetor, low-restriction exhaust manifolds, and other numerous features that made it efficient and reliable, even at high RPM. Subsequent improvements to the engine boosted output to 306 horsepower, with the powertrain now capable of a 0 to 60 miles per hour acceleration time of 5.7 seconds. In all, the builders made 13,000 Hi-Po 289 engines between 1963 and 1967. Chrysler LA340. Classic Mopars are mostly known for their massive big blocks, but Chrysler was no stranger to the small block market. The performance-oriented 340 V8 required premium gas, but made 290 horsepower and a whopping 345 pound-feet of torque if equipped with a 6-pack carburetor setup. The 340s featured on all classic Mopars, but were most famously used on the Trans Am spec, Plymouth Cuda AAR, and Dodge Challenger TA. Sadly, high gas prices and pressure from car insurance companies forced Chrysler to detune the engine in 1972 and later phase it out altogether in 1974. Ford Boss 302. The Boss 302 name is synonymous with high-performance Mustangs, as it's named after the Boss 302 V8 that lies under the hood. The Boss 302 V8 is good for 290 horsepower and about equal torque. Some reviewers claim Ford's estimate is conservative, suggesting the Boss 302 V8 puts out almost 350 horsepower. Whatever the actual numbers were, the engine revved to a high 6,250 RPM and could sprint from 0 to 60 miles per hour in 6.9 seconds, with a quarter-mile run completed in 14.6 seconds. It had a top speed of 137 miles per hour. The 302 V8 powered cars like the Cougar, Torino, and even the Fox Body Mustang, but the rare Boss edition is only found under the hood of the 1969 to 1970 Ford Mustang Boss 302 and Mercury Cougar Eliminators. AMC 401. AMC is typically looked at as the oddball brand of the muscle car era, but they packed a serious punch thanks to a durable 401 cubic inch V8. The 401 is good for up to 330 horsepower at 5,000 RPM and a stump-pulling 430 pound-feet of torque at 3,400 RPM. The 401 is typically found in AMC muscle cars like the Javelin AMX and Matador. Thanks to its durable construction and high torque output, the 401 was also installed in international pickups and Jeep pickups. The AMC 401 remained in production from its introduction in 1971 through to 1978. Pontiac 400. The Pontiac 400 has found its way under most Pontiac muscle cars during its 11-year run from 1967 to 1978. At its peak, the Pontiac 400 with Ram Air 4 equipment was good for 345 horsepower and an impressive 430 pound-feet of torque, and up to 370 horsepower in the GTO. Cars like the 1969 GTO Judge and 1970 Trans Am Ram Air 4 host a Pontiac 400 V8. The Trans Am featured in Smokey and the Bandit even used a 400 V8. Of course, the engine was fast for its day. In the 1969 Pontiac Firebird Trans Am Ram Air 4, it accelerated from 0 to 60 miles per hour in 5.1 seconds and cleared the quarter mile in 13.8 seconds. Chevrolet 396. First introduced in 1965 for the Chevrolet Corvette, the 396 V8 was born to go fast. The engine hit its peak in the Corvette L78 396, making 425 horsepower at 6,400 RPM and 415 pound-feet of torque at 4,000 RPM. Corvettes, Impalas, and Camaros all hosted the 396 V8, but its greatest application was in the 1965 Chevrolet Corvette Stingray Coupe L78 396. Although the 1970 Chevrolet Chevelle SS 396 featured the SS 396 badge, it actually had a 402 engine, which was a 396 bored 0.030 inch over 402 to comply with emission regulations. The SS 396 is generally considered to be one of the greatest Chevrolet muscle cars of the era. With this engine, the 1970 Chevrolet Chevelle SS 396 Sport Coupe could sprint to 60 miles per hour in 5.8 seconds and clear the quarter mile in 14.4 seconds. Cadillac 500. The biggest factory V8 of the muscle car era belongs to Cadillac, measuring in at a massive 500 cubic inches. The 1970 edition is good for 400 horsepower at 4,400 RPM and 550 pound-feet of torque at 3,000 RPM. The 500 powered most of Cadillac's models throughout the 1970s, including cars like the DeVille, Fleetwood, and the Eldorado, which featured the 500 V8 exclusively from its debut in 1970 until 1975. Chrysler RB440. What do the General Lee, the Bluesmobile, and the Vanishing Point Challenger have in common? Well, it's the massively powerful 440 cubic inch V8. The 440 was first introduced in 1965 and at its peak made 390 horsepower and pavement-pounding 490 pound-feet of torque. Reliability, power, and simplicity made it the perfect V8 for almost every application that it could fit. Chrysler cop cars, muscle cars, RVs, and pickup trucks all hosted the 440 V8. Chevrolet 454 LS6. Quite possibly the greatest big block produced by GM, was first introduced in 1970 and powered Chevrolet's performance cars and heavy-duty trucks with dependability and speed. The LS6 version is good for 450 horsepower and 500 pound-feet of torque. The 1970 Chevrolet Chevelle SS 454 is the most iconic car to host the 454 LS6, but it also features under the hood of Chevrolet legends like the 1971 Corvette Stingray and the 1970 Chevrolet El Camino SS. Ford 427 FE. Ford needed a big block V8 with enough power to win at the NASCAR ovals, yet reliable enough to run flat out for 24 hours straight. Their solution was the now famed 427 FE, making 425 horsepower and 485 pound-feet of torque in its single overhead camshaft street version. The race version made over 400 horsepower and was even banned by NASCAR. Ford's 427 FE was featured in classic muscle cars like the Galaxie 500 R-Code, Shelby GT 500, and even the Ford GT40. The single overhead camshaft version was ahead of its time, earning it a podium spot on our list. Chevrolet Small Block 350. When someone refers to the small block Chevy, or even just a small block V8, they likely have the Chevrolet 350 in mind. The 350-powered Chevrolet trucks and muscle cars for decades, peaking at 370 horsepower and about equal torque in 1970. Horsepower and torque aren't what makes the 350 V8 so legendary, though, but its reliability and massive aftermarket support. Gearheads still swap the 350 V8 into their favorite project cars, and the 350 laid the groundwork for the modern LS V8. Chrysler 426 Hemi. No surprise here, the 426 Hemi helped propel V8 engines and motorsport to unimaginable heights. The hemispherical head design allows this massive V8 to breathe better, making almost 500 horsepower from the factory. The Hemi is most famously used in NASCAR and NHRA drag racing, and is still used today in the latter. Most Dodge and Plymouth muscle cars of the era sported a Hemi V8, with some of the most famous being the Superbird, Daytona, and the Cuda. Well, there you have it, the greatest classic muscle car engines ever made. Which of these engines did you find interesting? Comment down below and let's discuss. Also, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button to keep you updated on our future uploads. Until then, I'll catch you on the next one.